morning to all of you all. It's been a pleasure, being part of this Pride of India event over the last 2 years. I think Santana said it was a fourth event. I have counted it lesser in nature with the time that has gone by. So probably I mentioned it as 3. But the fact is that, when Anurag was speaking about his E4M, 23 years back, E4M was exactly one of these brands in India, which was actually like a startup. Okay? So I could probably put it as an SME at that particular moment of time, actually. And 23 years later, today, they're not just straddling across the Indian marketplace from north to south, east to west, in different media platforms, digital, print, television, etc., but also cross-cutting into some of the other international markets in APAC and European markets with their own publications and media portals. So this is the story of most of the brands that evolved over a period of time, actually. And in India, when I look at this is a huge marketplace, actually. In fact, India is one of the largest SME market anywhere in the world, actually. Today, 33% of our GDP, which now we're talking about around 3 trillion, actually, 300 trillion, and expected to cross around 500 trillion, is getting fueled by this huge startup economies, actually. In fact, when you look at the overall growth of this sector, it's almost 7.5%, actually, compared to the GDP growth, which is averaging around 6 to 6.5%. So therefore, what we are looking at is a sector which, in all words, government is also now recognizing it as the one that is growing this particular country. And examples across these 2 decades have been phenomenal, actually. In fact, you will see a couple of case studies in this presentation who were actually small organizations, right, a couple of years back, have grown to such huge lengths in the last 2 or 3 years. The driver is not just coming in from the urban markets. Even rural have huge amount of startups, actually. In fact, 52% of the startups actually are coming from the rural markets. That means the fact that the entire Bharat is involved in this particular makeover that's happening in this country. And apart from that, just to give you fundamentally a data point from the point of view of SMEs that went into a public listing, they generated almost around 1,875 crores in 2022. And that's grown up by almost 38% in 2023. So therefore, what we are seeing now is a completely different scenario. And all these development changes that are happening, pushing the country into the number 3 spot in the world ranking, is all coming from this new sector. So therefore, in this presentation, we'll look at this hero, the SME sector in this country. How are they influencing advertising? And look at a couple of brand studies in the short time that we have. If you look at advertising itself, okay, the SME sector is actually fueling advertising growth in the marketplace. In a 95,000 crore advertising spends across multiple media, the SME sector contributes to almost 63% now, actually, compared to what it was around 60% prior to COVID. And during the pandemic, it took a little bit of beating, but came back in 2022 and 23. Almost 60,000 crores of advertising is fueled by this sector alone, actually. If you look at the overall pie of advertising, okay, the big MNCs, okay, which we think are fueling advertising money, is just 0.03% of the total number of advertisers listed itself. So it's not even 1% of advertisers that constitute these MNCs, actually. Okay. The big tail that comes in, which is the small and regional brands and the hyperlocal brands, that is the pride of India, which is building up this entire ecosystem on advertising. If I break this down into growing categories on a regional segment, you're seeing phenomenal differences, actually. If you look at the print sector, which is on the left-hand side, it's made up of different kind of categories. It's not FMCGs, it's not durables, it's not auto that you're seeing. These are the categories that are actually building the building blocks of future in terms of advertising. Real estate properties, just like what Dr. Anurag Batra said, actually. It's fueling a new segment. There's a gated community segment which built last year close to around 3 million homes across the entire country. And on the other hand, there's a 15 million set of homes that have been built up by Prime Minister's Awas Yojana. So around 16 to 18 million homes have been built in the last couple of years itself. That's fueling more number of accommodation, plus splits in families. That means that joint families are becoming nuclear families. And the minute there are new families getting formed, automatically it's fueling demand for products in these homes. If you look at the other categories, interestingly, you're seeing coaching, education, schools, universities, actually. There's a massive jump in growth in advertising by education categories. And you're seeing that across media. You're seeing it on print, you're seeing it on radio, you're seeing it on television, and you'll see it later on, even on digital in the next slide. Retail advertising, which in a way was very subdued, which was largely led by MNC's advertising or the big corporates advertising. And then at the bottom end, you could see a slug saying retail outlets at Velachery or in Besant Nagar or in Adayar, etc. Today, those same individual outlets have gone into advertising their own brand by creating chains across the marketplaces. And that is, again, one of the sectors that's fueling the growth. And again, you're seeing that in different formats. Retail outlets in electronics durables, retail outlets in clothing and textiles, retail outlets in departmental stores or home and interiors, retail outlets on food. So it's just expanding the horizon of advertising community in a big, big way, actually. If you look at digital platforms, which has primarily started off somewhere in 2018, just prior to pandemic, and has grown in a big way after the pandemic. Okay. Again, you are seeing educational institutes. And the interesting part is this new segment called foreign education or international universities education. That's a big one that has started coming up, actually. Okay. Apart from that, using competitive exams, etc. So these are the big top 10 categories advertising. And it's the same categories that are also fueling the growth. So these are the top 10 growing categories, actually. So if you look at the educational institutes, they are the number 2, but in the number 1 in terms of growth factor, actually. Okay. If you look at foreign education, they're number 9 in terms of contribution to the spends, but almost number 5 in terms of growth, actually. So what we are therefore seeing is primarily a fundamental growth factor led by the same categories that are exploding in the marketplace. Now, there's always this question about saying the fact that in this marketplace with a lot of digital apps and portals available, is the traditional media, which is television, degrowing in nature, and is digital taking over television per se? The battle between television and digital is being talked about in a big way in the media space. Let me throw you some highlights, actually. There are almost 130 categories which are still dedicated primarily to television, actually. Okay. They have not left the television territory. Their focus on television is pretty strong. And apart from that, while they may be advertising on digital, but their spends on digital is much lower than what they're doing on television. Some of the categories are in the F&B sector, they are in the personal care sector, personal health sector, hair care sector, so our grooming sector. So there's a huge set of categories and brands and advertisers still heavily focused on the television front. If I look at some of the national advertisers which have relatively spent less on digital and heavily on television, these are some of the brands that you're seeing. And even when I look at brands at a regional level, the story is the same, actually. Okay. So television has not died down as what media sometimes writes about, actually. Digital is there, no doubt about it, but television is still back in the space. If you look at these small brands or the regional brands, or 85,000 of them through this lens of the television versus digital, this is what you see actually. Okay. When I put the index on 2019 and compare the growth in 2023 on television, you're seeing almost for between 19 and 23, you're seeing almost 106% growth actually. Between 2020 and 23, you're seeing 187% growth in television. 21 and 23, almost 96% growth, and 2022-23, around 75% growth. So television for the SME sector, for the regional and local brands, is still strong per se actually. There are new guys who are coming into the categories, of course, through the digital side, and then using television as a step up over digital. And that's what you will see later on in the case study actually. Now this is again talking about the overall rank of television vis-a-vis digital, how television has around 123% growth that you're seeing between 2019 and 2023, vis-a-vis digital around close to 108%. So frankly speaking, when I look at pre-pandemic and today, okay, all the media platforms have actually grown in terms of volume of advertising and literally fueled by the SME sector. Here are two case studies that we picked up across 85,000 advertisers in this particular segment. One is Achi Masala in the spices category. Spices is one of the most heavily fought category actually. Unbelievingly, there are almost close to around 400 brands in this particular category. Even Unilever doesn't have that many brands in the soap or the shampoo or the detergents category. Okay? That's the number of brands. And interestingly, none of the MNCs are still there in the spices category. They have it in small manners, but bulk of them are made by the SME sector of regional brands, local brands, and even hyper-local brands. Okay. If you look at the total advertising spend as a category, actually, 66% dependence on television, actually. Okay. Digital is around 18%, and you have radio at around 15%. And whatever print exists is largely in the magazine sector. Interestingly, between 2019 to 2023, while television has grown by 29%, there's a big jump that has actually happened on digital. So it's a noticeable jump of almost close to around 350% actually. While that is so, look at how things have changed actually over the 4 years. The dotted line that you see is digital, and the red line that you see is television actually. Okay? So the number of advertisers who have jumped from almost zero in 2019 to almost 183 brands actually. So out of around 400 brands, you have almost 183 brands on digital, and you have 141 brands on television. So digital is growing noticeably. If you look at the brands, okay, they're more or less equal in nature. There are around 300 odd brands in terms of between TV and digital. If you look at some of the big brands, okay, on each of the categories, each of the media platforms, you have Achi Masala at around 6% on the television side, share of advertising, while you have MDH largely getting the maximum share with almost 25%. Now, when you notice this, you will see the fact that there are brands which are heavily on television but not on digital, and there are brands which have been digital which has not been on television in a significant way. So you see separation happening presently in nature. If you pick up one Achi Masala and dig deeper into it, they're a 100% television brand. Okay? And what this 100% television has done for them is actually able to give them a huge market share in the southern market. Digital, they did experiment it in 2022, but they have been off it after that actually. Advertising on print has been declined, but TV has been pretty steady in nature. They are among the 6th ranked one in the 141 advertisers in the spices category on television. And they have almost around close to 45 brands that are getting promoted across these 12 categories. Okay. Now, interestingly, when you're looking at them, at the Achi Masala side, they are investing heavily on spices, but there are other categories. They're also in instant mix, ghee, and milk beverages. Now, bulk of the revenue comes from spices for them, actually. Okay? And obviously, therefore, that's the hero product in nature. And when you look at their spends, they're segmenting between news and GEC in a significant way. And they use celebrities in a far-reaching manner to influence customers to buying them. So what has it yielded them, actually? So television has helped them grow revenues, almost over 500 crores revenues that they're touching and growing at almost around 11% per annum. They're able to retain their market share numbers significantly, building loyalty, customer loyalty in a highly competitive category, delivering reach numbers, massive reach numbers, which digital is not able to provide to them, and using celebrity able to influence other brand metrics like awareness scores or repurchase scores, etc. But will they be away from digital? I don't think so. Although they tried digital in 2022 and went out of digital, my feeling is the fact that to influence and target specific high-consuming consumers or create increase in consumptions, they will look at use the influencers to create consumption or increase consumption among their core user sets, actually. So while television does the job for them, digital is not far away from their perspective. And given the number of brands that is already on digital, on the spices category, Achi will also go the same way in the near future, without leaving out television. Look at the other case study, Karat Lane, actually. It's a branded jewelry segment from the Titan stable. Okay. Now, when you look at this brand, this is a pure digital brand, actually. Created out on digital platform, connected with consumers on digital platform, and have made history in the last 2 years. Okay. Again, a new brand, although coming from a big Indian company, but started as a startup itself, actually. Okay. With 92% focus on digital, okay, that's been their primary focus, although there have been television, radio, and print invariably used in nature. Okay. As a category itself, this branded jewelry has been on the digital platform for years together, actually. You see the dotted line that is actually giving you the digital number of advertisers and brands in the category focusing on the digital platform. Television has been a little less, actually. Where does Karat Lane stand, actually, at the overall level? In different platforms, they are probably in the range of around between 5 and the number 12 in the branded jewelry category, per se. But when you look at individually the brand, there are some starking things that come out, actually. The reliance on digital platform has been so heavy, the fact that all the revenues that they've gained has been supplied to them from that particular platform. Print, of course, has been there, but has been tactical in nature. Okay. On digital, what have they been using? Almost around 1,600 portals and apps, including almost close to 950 YouTube channels, actually. Okay. They have been using video themes as well as displays to propel customers in. And tactically used print at targeted pin code level, actually. Okay. The pin code usage of print advertising has enabled them to push advertising with discounting as a key element, actually. So if you want to buy certain products, and this is the discount or the promotion that's going on, go to this website and click on the link, and you'll get that promotion offer for the brand that you're buying in. So what has it done for the brand, actually? In 2 years' time, they've zoomed over 2,000 crores revenue with almost around 73% growth year on year, actually. They crossed a 1 million customer acquisition, and pin code level targeting has benefited them in a big way through digital and print. Digital has delivered them almost 50% of their revenues. And today, after realizing this, and now to expand the market, they have started going into physical stores, actually. Their plan is to touch almost on 228 physical stores across 88 cities, actually. So what's the next step, therefore? Now I'm going to look at a mass reach numbers to create footfalls in the stores, and that means the fact that they're going to be into television too. Okay. So national, regional, and hyperlocal presence on television will become important for the brand, actually. Okay. So what you're seeing through these two examples is clearly the fact that there's no such thing called one specific media is giving me will always continue to give me the best ROI, even for a small sectorial brand in a huge reservoir of SME segment action. Okay. There is intense competition happening at a regional, hyper-local level action, which means the fact that as brands keep growing year on year with customers, okay, the need to involve multiple media becomes essential, and therefore it becomes a driving point, the fact that how I use TV and digital continuously in nature. So therefore, SME startups who are now fueling the ad growth in this particular country and setting pace for MNCs to follow through acquisitions action, and which is true. Achieve last year, there was a discussion by Wipro Consumer Care and Tata Consumer Group saying they wanted to buy Achi at almost 1,000 crores for a company which was doing a revenue of around 500 crores. So obviously the interest on MNCs and big Indian companies are now focusing on which companies to acquire to create more and more growth in their turnover numbers. SME's robust revenue growth at regional markets is now making them look at national markets, like what you saw on the Kara side, actually, Kara Lane side. The mix between television and digital is getting reworked again and again, and sooner or later, it will be a coexistence of digital and television at a 50-50 ratio, depending on the priorities that the brand sets for itself. Okay. And as that happens, television will continue to play the creating reach for the brand, creating walk-ins to the brand, creating education about the brand, and creating brand equity for the brand action. And digital will flow in through that marketing funnel to create more businesses, create growth in terms of at a transaction, individual customer transaction level, and also at the same time continuously give feedback on the brand's performances or the customer's experience back to the brand itself. So at the end of the day, the story that I wanted to put forward over here was that media is all set for the sector that is the sun-rising sector in the Indian market. And as India tries to reach the 500 trillion market, actually, from a GDP size, we are actually going to look at seeing these sectors becoming not just phenomenally big brands in the Indian market, but also at a global level in nature. Thank you very much.